When a young woman unwraps newfound love, it leaves a taste in her mouth that she won't soon forget.
At first it was kind of a friendship thing, and then it just kind of began to morph into something else.
These two people really cared for one another, and they were making plans for the future.
But under a dark harvest moon were forces building beyond their control.
Rumors started circulating that someone had been stalking her.
They are saying that there's a love triangle going on.
They end up seeing numerous men with their identities being concealed, moving towards them.
We got shots fired. We're in pursuit of a white Nissan.
But is this the tragic end to a star-crossed romance, or the first hint of terror on the Day of the Dead?
She wasn't gonna back down. If somebody was threatening her or her friends or her family.
That was a recipe for disaster.
It's just very scary. And there's people dying like everywhere.
That day, everything stopped.
October 31st, 2013. It's Halloween night, and police are heavily patrolling the streets in Portland, Oregon.
Whenever you have a holiday, people tend to be a little bit more wild and rambunctious.
With it being Halloween night, they were definitely having extra officers on the streets, just making sure that the public was safe.
For patrol officers in Southeast Portland, it's been a relatively quiet night. But at 1:25 a.m., that all changes in an instant.
Did you hear that?
I think it was that way.
Let's go.
They immediately got in their car and started heading in the direction where they heard the gunshots.
David 21. We got shots fired, Briarwood and 21st.
As the two officers race down a boulevard, they spot a white Nissan Altima whip out of the Laurel Place apartment complex.
Did you see that?
The officers decide to follow the vehicle because it had its headlights off. That could have posed danger to the public.
As police turn on their sirens, the Nissan accelerates. Cops follow in hot pursuit.
21 dispatch, we got a white Nissan, no headlights on, driving erratic.
This chase went through a very residential neighborhood in Southeast Portland.
What they have to do is get that vehicle stopped as soon as possible, especially if you think that that vehicle is going to be hurting someone else.
The driver of that vehicle was turning very fast, very constant, trying to ditch the officers.
As the chase continues, the two officers see their suspects toss something out the window of their speeding vehicle.
The officers couldn't stop to collect that because they needed to continue chasing these suspects. But obviously, they know that that person wants that item to hopefully not be found by police.
21 dispatch, we're behind that white Nissan. He just threw something out the window.
As the suspect's vehicle whips onto 126th Street, its driver loses control.
The car actually got airborne. Ultimately, they went through that barrier in a park. Once that suspect vehicle crashed, the suspects fled.
Please stop!
The two officers race into the park on foot, but by then it's too late. Their suspects are gone.
These suspects definitely had the advantage because it was dark out. They were already wearing dark clothing, and they were simply going to scatter.
I lost him.
But who were these men that disappeared into the darkness? And what horrors had they wrought on this ghoulish night? Soon, a sickening discovery is about to raise the stakes in this investigation, and its epicenter is a young Portland woman who had everything to live for.
I've thought about this over and over again, and it's wrong, it's disgusting, and there's no making sense of it.
Precious Jackson grew up in Portland, Oregon in a warm and loving household where family always came first.
Okay. Yo, how long it's gonna take though, cause we hungry.
Almost done. Yeah, girl, I'm starving.
Precious was very, very close with her family, and she spent a lot of time at home.
From an early age, it was clear she was different.
There was absolutely nothing feminine about Precious. She just had a more masculine personality. She preferred to dress more like a male. She had a very deep voice.
Don't make that too salty, Bree. You always make it too salty. Come on, Priya.
If you didn't know better, she could easily have passed for a man.
Though Precious's family embraced her just as she was, not everyone was so accepting.
I know she would get bullied a lot, so she had to create kind of this hard exterior shell. And it came across sometimes as her being like a very hard person, but it was just this persona that she had to put up to kind of protect herself. Really, she was very soft.
With her warm heart and tough persona, Precious became a fierce protector of those she loved most.
If she saw somebody bullying you or picking on you, she would be the first one to stand up for you.
She protected her brother. She protected her sister. I feel like she even protected her mom.
She looked out for her friends, too.
But when it came to charting her own future, Precious wasn't as self-assured.
Precious did not finish high school. She ended up dropping out. She wasn't sure what she wanted to do. She didn't have a lot of structure. She worked off and on some part-time jobs. She spent a lot of time just hanging out in the streets with her friends. She was a little bit lost.
Of course, this 18-year-old had no way of knowing that a pretty 16-year-old high school student named Mercedes Warren would soon help her find her way.
Hi, nice to meet you, Mercedes. How you doing?
I'm good.
Have a seat right there.
Real good. Thank you.
Precious used to cut hair, so my best friend took me over to her house one day to get a haircut.
What you want to get done today?
I kind of want to go short.
Are you crazy? I think you're gorgeous just the way you are.
The first time I met Precious, her smile stood out the most. I had never been interested in a woman before, and I was like immediately attracted to her and her personality.
You know you're beautiful, right? You don't even need all this.
You're crazy.
The two young women soon found themselves spending every free moment together.
Precious and Mercedes started out as just being good friends, and then that friendship grew. They started dating, and I was a little surprised, but immediately I could tell that she really cared about my daughter.
When they looked at each other, it was complete eye contact. You could just tell that they were completely in love.
Precious spent a lot of time with my daughter and I at our house. She was at my house for Christmas, Thanksgiving, birthdays, baby showers. Precious definitely became part of our family. She was like a daughter to me.
As Precious and Mercedes matured into adulthood, they helped each other become better people.
She just brought out a strength in me that I didn't know that I had, really. A lot of kids were teased in my school for lesbian and homosexual relationships, and she made me strong.
Mercedes did the same thing for Precious. She was encouraging her to live to her full potential.
Mercedes, she really helped Precious grow as far as trying to decide how she could better herself.
I've been thinking about something.
Okay.
I was thinking about me going into nursing. It's something I've always wanted to do, you know, with me helping people and stuff like that.
I think that's great.
Though Mercedes and Precious never stopped loving each other, after 4 years together, they made the difficult decision to separate.
We wanted to be together, but we know that we shouldn't.
Personality-wise, they really were not a good couple. Mercedes and Precious both had very, very alpha personalities, and they both wanted to have things their way.
We decided it was better to be friends.
But in the years that followed, the two women remained close.
I desired having her in my life forever. She was an amazing friend.
In fact, Mercedes and her family had the chance to see Precious truly blossom and thrive.
Hey, boo, how you doing? So how's the new job coming?
Oh my God, this new job is so good. Oh, it's so good, I'm so excited.
She had decided she wanted to be a nurse's aide. Her passion was working with the elderly. She just felt like things were getting better and looking up.
Her smile was still beautiful, and her aura said she was happy.
I feel like I got my niche going.
I'm so excited for you.
Thanks, thank you.
By giving and helping people, she was actually getting something back out of it and getting a sense of fulfillment out of that.
But under an ominous Halloween moon in 2013, a ghastly chain of events were about to unfold, obliterating this young woman's dreams in one brutal moment.
Yes, we need the police over here. These apartments on fire. Somebody just got shot. Oh my God.
In her 24 years, Precious Jackson had experienced everything life had to offer. From the taste of love to a painful breakup, and finally finding happiness again in a healthcare career that brought her immense joy.
I think that she just really kind of felt empowered by helping people.
But in the early morning hours of November 1st, 2013, a series of unsettling events were underway that would soon cast a pall over Precious's happy life.
Two officers had heard gunshots in a southeast Portland neighborhood, and they ended up pursuing a car they saw speeding away from the Laurel Place apartments.
The suspects ended up crashing their car, and then they disappeared on foot in Portland's Gilbert Heights Park.
But as the two officers combed the vehicle's wreckage, a flood of concerned calls from residents at the Laurel Place apartment complex hits 911 operators.
911.
I just heard like 7 gunshots in my apartment building. Shooting in my apartment.
Okay, what address?
Laurel Place apartment.
Somebody's been shot in front of my door. They're right in front of my door. I believe they've been shot and fell down the stairs and hit my door.
Ma'am, calm down. We got somebody coming your way right now, okay?
As first responders race to the victim's aid, Portland police know they have to act quickly in the interest of public safety.
You can't have homicide suspects running through a neighborhood on a Halloween night. The police knew that they needed to set up a very large perimeter as quickly as possible.
As officers arrive at the Laurel Place apartment complex, they find a crowd gathered outside.
It was a chaotic scene. There were a lot of people coming out of their apartment because they had heard the gunshot.
People are crying and there's pandemonium.
The first responding officers couldn't really see what was on the ground, but could tell they were looking at someone.
Move, back up.
What they see is a victim who's laying in a pool of blood, riddled with bullets.
She's not breathing.
Got a black female victim, multiple gunshot wounds. Gotta get an ambulance here, please.
One of the officers tries to do CPR on the victim.
But it soon becomes clear that nothing can be done.
The person is dead.
While officers spread out to start questioning potential witnesses, investigators arrive and begin collecting evidence.
They were able to find 9 shell casings on the ground.
Looks like a casing from a 9mm.
They all appeared to be the same caliber, but at this point, investigators didn't know if it came from the same weapon or several weapons.
Don't have any leads or anything?
And uncovering the motive behind this murder could prove challenging in one of Portland's toughest areas.
It happened in a southeast Portland neighborhood that historically has had a lot of crime. Was this a robbery gone bad? Was this a drug deal gone wrong?
We have a lot of domestic violence situations. We do have gang shootings that occur.
Maybe this individual wasn't even the intended victim. Accidental shootings are not uncommon in areas with high gang activity.
With gang hits, it could be about revenge. It could be about some other gang member trying to take over the drug distribution syndicate in that particular territory. It could be about being disrespected by other gang members.
It's one of the things that the mayor's office and Portland Police Bureau continue to fight.
Gang activity has been known to thwart criminal investigations, and this case turns out to be no exception.
The people at the apartment complex didn't want to talk to the officers out of fear that this was a gang-related shooting.
They live in fear of what this gang might do in the very near future or far future.
It's something that really kind of hits home to a lot of families because these gang-related shootings affect so many people.
The fear of further violence isn't the only thing impeding this investigation. Up until now, police have been unable to identify their victim. But the cry of a woman in the crowd soon provides a sad clue.
Is that the name of the victim?
She identified the shooting victim as 24-year-old Precious Jackson.
Do you mind answering some questions for us?
I want to talk to you right now!
She was very emotional, and she didn't want to cooperate with law enforcement.
But after some coaxing, investigators are able to pull a partial story out of the hysterical woman who identifies herself as Tasha Williams.
She admitted that she was a friend of Precious and that she saw her get shot. She said it happened after they left the apartment complex laundry room.
Men in these masks and dark clothing showed up.
And these individuals were no late-night trick-or-treaters.
There were several men engaged in this group. Tasha was able to give some details to police about the shooter.
He was a black male. He was about 5'7" to 5'8", anywhere in his late teens to early 20s, and he was wearing a black ski mask.
Is there any reason to why Miss Jackson may have been the victim?
No! We know you're upset. We'll give you a minute.
As police wait for Tasha to calm down, they move forward with a routine procedure.
Police attempted to confirm Tasha's identity, but there was a problem. The name and the date of birth she gave didn't match anything in the state's database.
which leads investigators to make a troubling conclusion.
This woman is giving a false name.
So why had this young lady deceived Portland police? And what secrets might she be trying to hide?
Ma'am, what is your name again?
I know what we can.
The answers to those questions will only take investigators deeper into the abyss.
Your first thought is gonna be, she had something to do with this murder.
While investigating the murder of 24-year-old Precious Jackson, Portland police uncover something disturbing about alleged witness Tasha Williams.
She lied to police and gave them a false name. So who really is this woman, and what is she trying to hide?
There's no Tasha Williams that matches in the system with any of the information that you gave us, ma'am.
After detectives confront her, the woman purporting to be Tasha Williams finally comes clean.
The woman's real name is not Tasha Williams, it's Sierra Douglas.
Is there anything you want to tell us before we find out?
Precious and we were dating.
All right, well, how long were y'all dating?
A month?
She told police that they actually weren't together for very long before they moved in with one another.
We stayed in that unit up there.
Of course, this all raises red flags for detectives. If your lover was murdered and you were not involved, wouldn't you want to help police?
They needed to make sure that Sierra had no role in Precious's death.
Did you guys have any problems?
No, no problems.
So then why would you lie to us?
Because I have a warrant.
After checking their database, police confirm that this time Sierra is telling the truth.
But when police tell her they have to take her into custody on an outstanding warrant, she does not take the news well.
We don't have to cuff you up. We can just have you sit in the back seat, okay?
I'm not going back to jail. I'm not going. No, I'm not going.
One of the things that officers actually had to do is they had to physically detain her.
Get off of me!
They ended up wrestling Sierra to put handcuffs on her.
We'll just take her downtown, find out what we can.
Given her combative behavior, police aren't sure what to make of Sierra.
Some of what she said corroborated what the investigation had uncovered so far, but police still felt like she was hiding something and couldn't rule out that she had been somehow involved in this crime.
But for now, Sierra is in no state to talk to anybody.
Questioning would have to wait. Police take her down to the station to book her.
As for the men seen fleeing the apartment complex in the aftermath of the shooting, police find a clue that was tossed from the car in the heat of the chase.
They were able to use a heat-seeking device where they had last reported that object being thrown out and actually locate the object. It was a black ski mask.
Meanwhile, inside Gilbert Park, a search of the suspect's abandoned Nissan Altima turns up something else.
There was an orange bandana, and they also found a cap that also had an insignia of an H, also an orange. The colors, that was very important in this case.
Orange is the color of the Hoover gang members.
Cars will be orange, clothes will be orange, cell phone covers, they want to fly their colors.
They wear hats with H on them, usually Houston Astro.
The Hoover Gang is a very violent offshoot of the LA Crips. They're very active in Portland. They're known for peddling drugs, arms, prostitution, armed robberies, murders, you name it.
During this time, there was a lot of violent activity coming out of the Hoover Gang, especially against a group called the Rolling 60s.
The Rolling 60s are essentially arch enemies of the Hoovers.
Did Precious Jackson have some connection to the Rolling 60s? Was she leading a secret life?
Someone could have wanted Precious Jackson dead because of a possible gang affiliation.
As investigators consider that possibility, two witnesses approach officers with potentially important information.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
There was a guy running that way.
They were walking their dog at 130th Street when they saw a man racing from the direction of Gilbert Park.
What did he look like?
He was a black man, young. He had on a black pants, black shoes, initially a black jacket.
What do you mean initially?
They described how the man disappeared for a second, and when he re-emerged, the coat was gone, and he was wearing a white button-down shirt.
Not long after a bolo is issued, officers stop a man who matches the witness description to a T.
Hold up, sir.
Is there a problem?
It was a cold night. He wasn't wearing a jacket.
If you touch him, he's hot like he's been running a race.
Just that alone is enough to make a law enforcement officer go, okay, we want to talk to you.
You have any ID on you?
What they get is a school ID, and it says this person is Antonio Lorenzo Sanders, 20 years old.
10-4, thank you.
But when officers run Antonio's name, they learn he is no chaste young pupil.
You're gonna need to go with us. We just need to talk to you a little more.
What?
He's been involved in shootings that sent him to prison earlier on. He has a warrant for his arrest for being an unlawful possession of a firearm.
And that isn't all.
Mr. Sanders has a gang affiliation. According to Portland police, he was identified as one of the Hoover gang members.
Eager to question Antonio, police detain him on the outstanding warrant. That's when chatter from dispatch alerts police to something highly concerning.
There have been 2 other shootings in the area that night.
One of the first questions we asked, are these 2 shootings related to the shooting that killed Precious Jackson?
All of this raises another terrifying possibility for detectives in these gang-riddled streets.
Is this an all-out gang war?
In the aftermath of Precious Jackson's post-Halloween night murder, investigators discovered another stomach-churning detail. There were 2 other shootings that night in Southeast Portland's gang-infested streets.
Is this a related shooting? Is this an all-out war?
Detectives conferred with their colleagues at the other crime scenes to see if there might be a link.
Meanwhile, police interrogate one potential suspect, Hoover Criminals gang member Antonio Sanders.
Do you know anybody by the name of Precious Jackson?
No, ma'am.
So you wouldn't happen to know anything about her murder tonight?
Nope.
They also asked him if he knew anything about the 2 other shootings in Portland that night.
Look, man, I don't know anything about this shooting or any other. I mean, it doesn't surprise me. It's dangerous out there.
So what were you doing out in the street that late at night?
Look, man, I was just coming from my girlfriend's house. Just going to the store, and then the police stopped me.
He relates that he took a municipal bus, the number 9, over about 9 p.m. at night. He says he's visiting someone in the area by the name of Antoinette.
Now, Antonio says that at about 1:30 a.m., he left Antoinette's house to make a run to the store, and that is when police stopped him.
You better not be lying.
I ain't.
Let's go.
While police attempt to confirm Antonio's story, detectives return to the crime scene, where news of Precious's death has now reached her family and friends.
When they heard the news, they were crying. They were absolutely devastated.
Among the grieving mourners that night is Precious's ex-girlfriend, Mercedes Warren.
With Precious dying, I feel like I lost a piece of me with her.
Though highly emotional, Precious's friends and family are eager to do whatever it takes to help investigators, and detectives have a pressing question to settle.
Given police fears this crime might be connected to a larger gang war, police needed to know whether Precious had any gang ties.
And did y'all know if Precious may have been, involved with any gangs or maybe hung out with the wrong crowd, maybe?
But loved ones insist that wasn't part of Precious's life.
I knew Precious from the time she was 18 until she was killed. And I have never heard any of Precious's friends or family members ever mention her being in a gang. I've never seen her throw up any gang signs, dress like a gang member, talk like a gang member.
She was a caregiver trying to make herself as a good homemaker. And that was her direction. Any kind of gang activity or anything else wasn't really on her radar.
While Precious seems like an unlikely target for gang violence, her sister Priyana does reveal something troubling.
Listen, you need to just stop calling my phone. I ain't got nothing to do with you and her, okay?
Precious had been getting threats for a few weeks.
And Priyana says just before the murder, they escalated.
You want to come after me with a gun now?
Who is that?
Don't worry about it.
Priyana overheard in a phone conversation that Precious was having that there would be gun violence and she would be involved in it.
Stop calling my phone.
When investigators ask Priyana whether she knew who was behind the menacing call, her answer is surprising.
She claimed it all started with Sierra Douglas.
Sierra Douglas, The very woman that police had taken into custody earlier that night on an unrelated warrant charge. A woman who admitted to having a relationship with Precious, but had already lied to police once that night.
But what else did friends and family know about Sierra's relationship with Precious?
Can we take you over here to ask you some more questions?
According to Precious's ex-girlfriend, Mercedes Warren, when she and Precious split, neither could imagine ever finding love again.
We were equally sad. We equally missed each other.
But for Precious, dipping her toe back into the dating pool was particularly painful.
They were so close, and it took a long time to get her to the point where she could find the strength to move on.
Then, one day in 2013, Precious finally met someone who filled the void in her heart.
Can I get a light? Yeah. Appreciate that.
Not a problem.
I'm Precious, by the way.
I'm Sierra.
And after ending a relationship with a boyfriend of 5 years, Sierra was on the rebound and looking to have some fun.
You enjoying the party?
Yeah. Are you?
I am now.
Precious was so attractive and so fun and so flirtatious that women wanted to talk to her and wanted to be around her and wanted to enjoy her personality.
As Precious and Sierra's relationship deepened, apparently neither woman saw it as a short-term fling.
Sierra had a child, and the thought of possibly getting to help someone raise a child was very exciting to Precious.
Though the 2-year-old little boy was living with Sierra's mother in Arizona at the time, they talked about what would happen when he came home.
But not everyone was content with the couple's newfound happiness.
Allegedly, Sierra's baby daddy and ex-boyfriend, Corey Hill, was pretty upset about the situation.
Not only was he being rejected by Sierra, but Precious Jackson had taken his place.
This may have been a little bit damaging to this gentleman's ego.
She was able to attract so many women, and he was intimidated by knowing that another woman can take your woman.
Mercedes tells detectives that in the weeks leading up to Precious's death, Precious had been receiving threats from Corey. For her own safety, Precious's loved ones had urged her to end the relationship with Sierra. But like Precious had done all her life, she refused to abandon the woman she loved because of a bully's threats.
Instead, Precious moved with Sierra into the Laurel Place apartments, a place where she believed Corey wouldn't be able to find them.
Could this case, which once appeared to be gang-related, really be a love triangle gone wrong? Police aren't sure.
Thank you for your time, man.
Sorry for your loss, all right?
Soon after talking to Precious's family, police were able to determine that the other 2 shootings in Portland were not related to this particular shooting.
But if this murder was just about Corey Hill being jealous, there was a lot they could not put their finger on.
Why had a group of masked men shown up the night that Precious was shot? And how was Antonio Sanders involved? Or was he?
In a case with more questions than answers, one witness is about to drop an enormous bombshell.
She revealed the man's identity, and they were floored.
After allegations surfaced that Corey Hill, Sierra Douglas's ex, was deeply jealous of Sierra's relationship with Precious Jackson, Portland detectives must now consider one more possible motive for Precious's murder.
There's a love triangle going on, and someone has been rejected.
But if that was the motive for the crime, then who were these masked men that showed up at the murder scene that night? And how was local gang member Antonio Sanders involved, if at all?
Hoping to learn more, investigators turned to Sierra Douglas, who was about to be released for the outstanding warrant charge.
It turned out there was a mistake, and the arrest warrant for Sierra was no longer active. Detectives were hoping that under less tense circumstances, she would be more cooperative.
But when confronted with the allegations made by Precious's family and friends regarding Corey Hill, Sierra becomes defensive.
You're not saying Corey did this?
No, I don't think he's that type of person.
Sierra says when she met Corey at the tender age of 15, he was a rising boxing star.
Corey started boxing when he was 9. At 14 years old, he won his first national tournament. Corey was a 3-time Tacoma Golden Glove champion, 2009, 10, and 11. He would come to the gym, watch him practice. She would go to his fights. Corey was very happy with Sierra. It was a perfect fit. They were really a nice young couple.
Then, 1 year into their relationship, Corey and Sierra got shocking news. Sierra was pregnant.
Corey was overwhelmed at having a child. That's natural.
But Sierra says what Corey did next put their family's future in jeopardy.
Corey had stopped coming to practice. He made some bad decisions because of outside influences.
He eventually, hooked up with the Hoover gang, with young people. It's a lot about who they associate with. You can have a good student who's never been involved in any kind of problem, and they find a friend who is a lot more impulsive, a lot less thoughtful about their, consequences. Next thing you know, they're drug into it.
Once young men start going the opposite direction, only thing we can do is let them know they don't have to go that way, and there's consequences.
If you're hanging out with gang members, it's inevitable you're going to be involved in that lifestyle.
By 2012, he had done time for drug charges, and his relationship with Sierra was over.
So he's in that Hoover gang.
He was.
Did that make you think there's going to be a problem?
No.
Okay. We still are trying to figure out what happened.
Sierra begins to open up and says that on the night of November 1st, when she had just finished doing some laundry, a group of masked men approached her.
Sierra says when one of the men moved to adjust his orange bandana, she immediately recognized him.
That was Corey Hill.
There was a verbal altercation and some threatening words.
Precious Jackson can hear the commotion from upstairs, where she's smoking a cigarette.
Miss Jackson came down the stairs to make sure that Miss Douglas was safe.
If Sierra in any way felt threatened, Precious would stand up for her because that's how she was. She was a protector.
Precious jumps in and pushes Corey Hill.
That's when Sierra says a man wearing a ski mask got up in Precious's face.
Man, don't be pushing him up, bro. You hear me?
By now, Precious had had enough.
She wanted nothing to do with this group, and she wanted to get away.
She walked away and made her way upstairs.
Sierra says before she could follow Precious's lead, all hell broke loose.
This coward unloads into her back. She falls dead right there. She didn't stand a chance.
It's even more sad that she was trying to leave a bad situation and they decided to just take her life while she's walking away.
Corey Hill's violent past and his presence at the murder would seem to bolster the argument that Precious's death was a crime of revenge. But for investigators, there are a few facts that still don't fit.
If this was Corey Hill's personal vendetta against Precious, then why had the man wearing the ski mask pulled the trigger and not him?
As for the latter question, detectives believe one man already in custody may know the answer: Corey's fellow gang member, Antonio Sanders.
Both he and Corey were Hoover criminal gang members. Perhaps it was no mere coincidence that he was in that neighborhood that night.
But Antonio had a very specific alibi. He said he was visiting a friend in the neighborhood and had gotten a ride there on the city's number 9 bus.
However, that very specificity turns out to be Antonio's undoing.
Our municipal bus system all has surveillance cameras. They check all the surveillance cameras, and guess what? No Antonio Sanders.
Investigators know there's one person who can provide the answers they need: Corey Hill. On November 19th, they locate Corey at his home and haul him into the station for questioning.
Today, what I'm here to talk to you about is just what you know, because I know you were there, right? So just got to get everybody who was there's statement about what happened and move forward.
But under withering questioning, Corey refuses to play ball.
I don't know anything about it.
You don't know anything about that? Okay, so did you know Precious?
No, I didn't.
You never met Precious? Do you know anything about Precious?
He said he didn't know that Sierra was dating anybody else, and he hadn't seen Sierra in a long time.
When's the last time you saw Sierra?
It's been a while.
Do you remember when?
Not exactly.
Was Sierra dating somebody else?
I got my own girlfriend, so.
What's on?
So I have my own relationships, but I really don't know.
He also said that he didn't know anybody named Antonio Sanders.
Just admit you're lying. You just want to sit there for murder. That's what you want to do. Just say I'm lying. You want other people to speak for you. What about Mr. Sanders? What's he gonna say? Who's that? He's in the same car that you're in, so don't tell me who's that. He's in the same car that you're in. I don't know.
You don't know him. So all you've done so far is tell me lie, 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 lie.
Though police feel confident Corey Hill is lying to them, they aren't ready to press charges.
Without knowing more about his role in the commission of the crime, they didn't even know what he was guilty of. Conspiracy to commit murder, accessory after the fact.
Since Corey is currently on parole, police are able to hold him at the station while they continue investigating the case.
He has been on parole for an unlawful weapons possession, so they're able to detain him.
But what detectives need right now is a hard piece of evidence that ties Corey and Antonio to the same location. It's back at the crime scene that police spot a potential opportunity.
The apartment complex had surveillance video.
When investigators review the footage, it confirms that 2 vehicles entered the parking lot at about 1:30 a.m. And these were the same 2 vehicles seen fleeing the parking lot a few moments later. And even more importantly, it showed among these men at least one of them wearing a bandana. And based on Sierra's earlier account, police believe that one of these men was Corey Hill.
As for the trigger man, he's also present and wearing a ski mask in the footage, just like Sierra told police.
They already knew he was the shooter, but now they're noticing things about his clothing.
He's wearing a white shirt, dark jeans, and black and white Adidas, and also wearing a coat.
That's exactly what Antonio Sanders was wearing the night he was apprehended, minus the coat.
The shooter is Antonio Sanders.
And now that evidence techs have done a thorough sweep of the suspect's getaway car, there's more forensic evidence pointing to Sanders.
Antonio Sanders' fingerprint was found inside the vehicle that officers were pursuing that night.
Inch by inch, detectives move closer to solving the crime. But when a lady of the night comes calling, it might just provide the final missing piece to this unnerving puzzle.
Every time I think about it, I get this weird feeling in my stomach. It makes me sick. It's disgusting.
Thanks to newly surfaced surveillance footage, detectives in Portland, Oregon feel certain that gang members Corey Hill and Antonio Sanders were both present when Precious Jackson was gunned down at her apartment complex. But what detectives still don't know is, did Antonio act alone when he pulled the trigger, or at the behest of his fellow gang member, Corey Hill?
At this point, neither one of these men is cooperating with police. They hope that finding some of the other masked men involved in the crime would help put the pieces together, but they can't find them.
It was dead end after dead end.
Then investigators get what looks like a lucky break.
Is that you, detective?
A woman named Sophie Keys comes forward, claiming to have dirt on Antonio Sanders and Corey Hill.
She had kind of a paid-for-hire sexual relationship with Antonio Sanders. And every time that Antonio Sanders was with Sophie Keys, Antonio Sanders also had his best friend, Corey Hill, with him.
You don't see one without the other.
This information was huge because detectives are finally able to corroborate a relationship between these 2 men.
According to Sophie, in the last few weeks, she had overheard numerous conversations between the 2 gang members, some of which she claims were heated.
During those conversations, Hill was agitated, more than agitated, enraged oftentimes around the relationship that Sierra began to engage in with Precious.
As a member of the Hoovers, he does not want to be looked upon as not a powerful person. To have his child's mother leave him and then be with a woman takes that away from him.
Sophie claims that in the hours before Precious's murder, Corey Hill's anger boiled to a climax.
Got some people, man, might be trying to start some trouble. We need to go handle them. Ooh, it's a chick, man. It's a chick, and I think we need to go, and we need to mess that bitch up, man.
Man, I told you, I ain't got no beef for that lady.
Yeah, you do. She rolling 60s, dawg. That's what's up.
Damn! Why you ain't say that before?
Corey Hill had to come up with a rationale that would be palatable to Antonio Sanders. Corey Hill framed it that Precious Jackson was a rival gang member, a Rolling 60s Crip.
So he's believing that where they're going to be getting a point across to possible rival gang members.
Even though that was untrue at the end of the day.
You down?
Yeah, man, I'm down.
All right, man.
Yeah, come on, man.
All right.
For detectives, Sophie's allegations are a game-changing revelation.
Corey Hill is really the mastermind of this killing.
He essentially used Antonio as his pawn in a love triangle, even going as far as wearing an orange bandana and flashing Hoover colors that night to make the gang rivalry feel real to Antonio Sanders.
For gangs, it's amazing what can rile or incite somebody's anger to go after the other person.
Just using basic psychology and understanding what causes people to become aggressive, especially brutally aggressive, such as desire to kill another person, one has to have their mindset stuck in a space of constant threat.
I'm still in shock to this day. It's just senseless. For no reason, somebody lost their life.
In light of the new evidence and testimony, on November 21st, Antonio Sanders and Corey Hill are charged with Precious Jackson's murder.
I was still sad and devastated. Just because you arrest somebody doesn't bring Precious back.
As the case heads to trial, detectives continue gathering evidence against the two men.
They sent the orange bandana that they found in the suspect's getaway car and the ski mask that they found thrown out from that vehicle in for DNA testing.
When they test the orange bandana for DNA, it comes back to Corey Hill. They test that ski mask for DNA, and the DNA comes back to Antonio Sanders.
When you have that DNA evidence that they're able to match up with statements and video, now that's the nail getting hammered into the coffin.
But the most incriminating evidence comes from inside prison walls.
When Antonio Sanders was locked up in custody, a corrections officer was able to find a note.
They could authenticate it being authored by Antonio Sanders. Antonio Sanders is trying to say, basically, hey, Corey Hill, keep your mouth shut. All I'm worried about is the surveillance cameras that captured our likenesses as we went into the Laurel Court apartments.
The note was clear that Antonio Sanders was linking himself to this crime, and it had information that linked Corey Hill to the crime.
This note? It's very damaging.
Not long after, defense attorneys approached the prosecution about making a possible plea.
They set up judicial settlement conferences that are closed to the public about the strengths of the case and the weaknesses and the reasons why people should plea bargain a case. There's a lot that goes into trying a case. It is expensive, it takes a lot of time, and when you have gang members involved, there's always a possibility that some of the witnesses are going to be threatened. So it's a very frightening thing, and the Portland police and the DA cannot protect every witness.
In the end, prosecutors decide to offer both defendants a reduced charge of first-degree manslaughter.
Antonio Sanders would serve a sentence of 18 years. Corey would serve 12.
Corey's proposed sentence was much shorter because police could not prove that the murder was premeditated and because he did not pull the trigger.
I advise Corey that was very, very lenient. What they could have done was a lot worse than that.
Both men took the plea.
Corey sees this part. Corey was saying to me, Dad, I apologize. You know, I would prefer my son being where he is now with the understanding that he made some bad decisions than for him to be here today and still on that same path.
Those close to Precious feel her killers got off easy.
I personally think if you shoot someone in the back and that person is running away from you, you should never see the light of day again, ever.
Precious is gone forever, but you can come out when you're 40. I feel like they should be locked away for life.
Each day, her loved ones must struggle with the knowledge that the world lost a wonderful woman, all because of one man's senseless jealousy.
It was just heartbreaking. Nobody should lose their life over something as silly as, I don't want you dating my ex-girlfriend. It's still very hard for us to talk about because we still feel like she should be here.
Besides, like, my mom, like, I've never had nobody, like, stand up for me the way she has and love me the way she has. I feel like the world lost someone amazing.